Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
I'm your host, Con Jonturk, and on this episode of the Blind Apex Podcast, we're going to talk about what it takes to run an amateur race team. Joining me, Little Dipper race car developer, master of Instagram Reels, especially recently, and the head of Leadfoot Racing, Jett Johnson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Con. I'm excited to be here and look forward to talking about this. This is something that is near and dear to my heart because I love racing, but I could never really afford to do it. So we're just trying to figure out how to make more people find a way to go out and go racing.
Yeah. So let's talk about your background in racing, where you got started, your passion for motorsports, where that all grew from. So people can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, totally. So I have no background in racing at all. I had one family member who did circle track.
Okay.
But she lived in like 3 states over, and that was about it. We never could afford to race, so I never was able to do any form of racing. So I would always ask like, oh, can we go-karting? No, that's still too expensive. So when I got into college, I was going to school to be an engineer.
Okay.
And I took a look one day and I said, okay, if these people say I can put a satellite into orbit, why can't I make my own car?
Right.
And so I built my own car, and then I threw it on a trailer, and I showed up at a track day and I said, let's figure this out.
Okay.
So I basically instead of doing the normal thing of buying a car and modifying it, I designed and built a tube chassis car with a motorcycle engine, BMW suspension, universal coilovers, and a roll cage to go road racing, and showed up at the track and said, this is what we're going to do.
Okay. But where did this automotive passion come from? Why did you, even as a child, want to go racing?
I don't really know, because I was never really a outgoing, I was outgoing, but I wasn't a very, we'll say, a daredevil kid. Mm-hmm. I liked driving my dirt bike, but I didn't really go that fast. I didn't jump it at all.
Right.
I think I had a dirt bike for years before I finally went off like a bicycle jump.
Yeah.
I was raised around cars and I liked them, but I didn't really have much of a passion for cars growing up. I just liked them and was around them.
Okay.
But as I got into high school, I don't know why I did. I just grew to like cars. I don't really have a big story of my dad did this or my grandfather did this, or I grew up in a garage, or I helped my dad tinker on things. I don't really have a story like that. We worked on things, and my dad was no slouch in the garage, and I would always join him. Mm-hmm. But we didn't, I don't know. I think I just grew to want to build things and then gravitated towards vehicles.
Okay. I think it's just an ambitious goal when you don't have that automotive background. I mean, apparently you took on some pretty good cues, right? BMW suspension and those types of things, but to then take that on as such a massive project in school.
So that was something. So I didn't have a huge passion for it when I was going into high school. Mm-hmm. And then through high school, I developed that passion of, I like the way these work. I like to understand them. And then when I got to college, because I was going to be an engineer, I kind of learned how to do aerodynamics. I learned about thermodynamics. I learned about all the components that go into a car.
Right.
And I just really gravitated towards loving the nitty gritty, all the details of a car. And it probably was because it's kind of everything. I like to do a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And so I really just wanted to hone in on something that had everything in it. I wasn't really passionate about flying, even though it's cool. And I I've done some designs for airplane parts, or like I have a minor in aerospace engineering. So I had a lot of that type of stuff. I had a lot of like space-based programs, but when I was in college, I opted to go work on GTRs instead of building drones. So when I was in high school, it really developed as it must have just been the friend group that I was with. We all liked cars. And I just kind of took the forefront of, I'm going to be the person that learns how to do all of this stuff and learns all the ins and outs of it.
Okay. So you go to school to be an engineer, but now you're an entrepreneur in Leadfoot Racing, and you're doing engineer things. I'm not saying you're not doing that, because you have this project we're going to talk about. But what was your initial goals for Leadfoot Racing?
So Leadfoot Racing was initially started while I was in an entrepreneuring class. When you're an engineer or engineering student, they teach you can do everything, but they don't really show you how to do it. A good example of this is when engineers come out of school, they know how to design anything under the sun, or they act like they do, and they don't know how to make a single thing. So there's usually a disconnect there. And when I was in an entrepreneuring class, because the college I went to required you to take at least one business class. Mm-hmm. And the professor, I told him about something. I was like, hey, I want to build a race car. I want to make racing more affordable. I think this is a good route. And I had already started designing and building my first car. And he said, of course you can do it. Let me put you in touch with someone that I know. And it just happened to be one of the head managers at Toyo Tires at the time. And so he's like, yep, they're wanting to do the same thing. You can totally do this. We'll help you figure out how to turn this into a business. Because ultimately that's what stops a lot of people from chasing their dreams, is you can't, I guess we'll say, financially afford to do it, or you don't have the right guidance to figure out how to do it. So you might be able to design a car, but you can't market the car, or vice versa.
Right.
And so when I came to him, and the whole goal of Leadfoot Racing was to make racing more affordable and attainable for the everyday person.
Okay.
Because in my mind, I said it doesn't have to cost $75,000 for a track-ready car, because that's what Toyo Tires was working on. It's called the Mazda, I think it's an NP01.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, it had just come out with NASA, and they said, this is what Toyo Tires considers affordable. And at the time, it was $75,000 for the car.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't get you a trailer. They didn't get you tires, fuel, admission, anything.
Nope. Just the car.
And, yep. And so that was the whole premise that LFR was founded on, was making racing more attainable and more affordable.
Okay. So you're looking to slay the NP01, essentially. In a cost.
No, we're trying to make a better fit for the market that it's in.
Okay. What I mean, instead of slay it, I'm not talking about lap time to lap time, but a fun per dollar type of thing.
Exactly.
Because at $75,000, I better be having one heck of a time, right? So I know that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm on my second race car. So I know what it takes to build one. And if 75,000 is the turnkey, that's pretty high. So,
yep.
The Little Dipper is your race car that you're building, developing. Have you built a production version yet, or are you still in testing?
So that's an interesting story. So the Little Dipper went through 5 design stages, or 5 iterations. 3 of them came to be physically built. 2 of them were just virtual, because with everything that you want to change, engineers are, if we're not given a budget or a timeline, we'll never finish anything when we're designing it.
Okay.
So having CAD makes it a lot easier for me to sit down one night and, I'm going to make it shorter. Let's change everything. let's if we change the wheelbase, what does that do?
Mm-hmm.
So the Little Dipper was our initial production vehicle. We started to open it up to pre-orders and started some testing.
Okay.
It was a great little car. It was 1,200 pounds. The car that we used for testing made 165 horsepower. You could run virtually any motorcycle engine in it.
Mm-hmm.
Single seat, mid-engine, sequential transmission. It had all the fun buzzwords that everyone wants to hear. But in the couple years we spent designing and developing and building it and testing, it missed the kind of the most crucial goal that I wanted. And that was something that was easy. Because I want it to be affordable from the day you purchase the car to the day you service the car to the day you drive the car. And I also want it to be fun.
Okay.
And it was really good at autocross. It was really good. Like, it handled really well for drifting. But it just wasn't, like, my whole goal was longer endurance or longer stint road racing.
Okay.
Predominantly with NASA and SCCA. So 20, 30-minute sessions, 3 to 5 sessions a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one mark it didn't hit. Because I built it to the edge of kind of what was possible, because I like to not do things the normal way sometimes to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit more maintenance happy than I wanted it to be. So I was actually getting my racing license, because at this point I still have very little racing experience.
Right.
Went through SCCA, was getting my competition license, and actually had the drive shaft break while we were racing. And so I stopped, and I was like, okay, well, I finished the first day. I still have a second day of racing to get my license. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't fix the car by then. The drive shaft took out the part of the firewall. It took out the diff. It took out the rear subframe. It took out part of the engine. And I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out how to get our racing license and go from there.
Okay.
So the Little Dipper was a great development platform, and for us to learn and figure out, like, really hone in on what we want, and to realize that, hey, you may say you wanted these things, but you didn't kind of like remember them as you go through. You know how when you have a goal of like, I'm going to do this thing, and then halfway through you don't realize that you forgot that was the thing you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So the Little Dipper, do you have a fleet of them? Do you still have the 3 that were produced?
I do.
Okay.
So they're in various stages of disassembly, because you have to kind of, it has to get worse before it gets better. So they are taken apart or put back together, or stuff's changed. And there were major design changes between the 3 versions.
Okay. So they're not necessarily
the
interconnected.
They are in the shape, premise, basic layout, subframes, suspension, those types of things.
Okay.
But the main functionalities, that was kind of the main thing that changed.
Okay. So how did you go from developing or trying to develop this car, learning and trying to get your race license? How did that morph into race team and running one? Exactly. So one of the goals that we had with the Little Dipper is we'll build these, we'll sell them, because our target price for the Little Dipper was $10,000 for the kit. Okay.
That got you everything you needed besides an engine.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, this will be perfect. We'll pre-order the cars, we'll sell the cars. That'll be our main thing. And then we'll pivot or add a revenue stream to the business by rental services. And so we would provide crew, supplies, cars, everything for somebody who wants to try renting our car and trying out a track day, as opposed to having to buy, because even at $10,000, You have to commit to a $10,000 purchase. You have to potentially have a truck and trailer, and you might not even like it. So when the catastrophic failure of the Little Dipper happened, I went up to one of the coaches and I said, hey, I know you rent cars. How much is it going to cost for me to rent one of your cars for me to finish my license?
Mm-hmm.
He gave me a price. I said, I'm in. So I rented his car for the remaining sessions in order to get my racing license.
Right.
And that was the point of this car that I rented does what I want. So that was the big turning point for realizing that we had missed the mark with the Little Dipper. Their car was simple. It was lightweight. It was not fast at all. I think the cars make 105 horsepower and they weigh 2,300 pounds.
Is it a Miata?
No, it's an RX-7.
Okay. Sort of the same.
A first generation RX-7. Yep. So slightly heavier and slightly less power.
Mazda still made it. So.
But, oh yeah. The one upside is that it has a rotary. And we race the rotary still.
Some people don't call that an upside, but...
Oh, I'll get to the upside in a second.
Okay.
I have a personal story about that. But so I absolutely love the car. I loved how simple it was, easy. And I mean, I own a Datsun 240Z. It's a great car to drive, but I never race it. It's a show pony. I like to drive it around and it doesn't see the track at all. But when I got done with the licensing, I went and thanked the guy. I was like, hey, thank you so much. You really saved my rear end. Without you, he rented me his personal car for me to finish out my license. Mm-hmm. And I was like, thank you so much. And I was like, I love the car. I'd love to own one someday. And he's like, well, we'll sell you one. And he gave me a price and I said, it's cheaper to buy this car than it is to fix mine. And that comes from the extensive damage that the drive shaft going out the back of the car does.
Right.
But I called my business partner at the time and I'm like, hey, told him all about the experience. And he had brought up before, instead of building cars, why don't you build spec cars? Mm-hmm. And if you've ever looked into spec Miatas, depending on what generation and what level you're wanting, some of them are absurdly expensive.
Yes, they can be.
You're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen fairly priced ones for around $60,000.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep.
And so at that point, I was like, well, it's really not like, yeah, it'll work, but that's not really what we want to do because that doesn't really, in my mind, that doesn't make it as affordable. So I told him about this spec car that I had raced because they're spec RX-7s. And he said, instead of building cars, because your whole goal is to get people into racing, why don't you just rent spec cars?
Right.
So we take the hit initially, buy the car, and then rent the car to people. Because as much as I want to build cars, I want more people out on the track. Mm-hmm. Because from a business perspective, the more people going out to the track, the more people we have to potentially sell the car to. But from a personal perspective, the track is fun to be at.
Right.
Tons of people miss out on that because they think they don't belong, they don't have the right equipment, but everyone I've ever met has been amazing to be around.
And they think, most people, to be honest, think the barrier of entry is astronomical.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, they think it's
They think it's, I have to go buy this whatever $75,000 NP01 or it costs $20,000 a weekend or what, like gentleman driving kind of numbers that they might see on Motor Trend or whatever. They don't understand how attainable and affordable still, even with inflation, how affordable club racing really is in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, any form of racing is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
It's not like if you want to get into soccer, all you need is a ball and a field and some friends.
Right. Yeah. It's not that kind of hobby, right? Think of it as I have mountain bike friends, and they used to be at the track friends, and they're like, oh, used to be so amazing, but now I save so much money, and I would call shenanigans because they're always buying some like $6,000 carbon frame bike every year. And I'm like, $6,000 goes a long way when you're going to the track.
Oh yeah.
You know,
the price per pound is astronomically cheaper to go racing than what they're doing.
What they're doing. Yeah, absolutely. So it is a hobby that requires expendable income. Nobody is ever going to lie to you about that. Okay. Even my Spec 3 friends that tell you can build one for $15,000 from scrap, from the whatever, find one used and then get everything done for 15 grand. They will admit, hey, you have to put tires on it. Yes, we get the FCP Euro kind of discounts on these things, but you always got to make the first buy, right? So you make the first buy and then FCP Euro will give you your refund and you have shipping fees. All these things add up, right? There's expense to it. It's not free. It's not a ball and a glove kind of hobby. It's not a ball and some friends. It's not a local rec league type of hobby. It takes some income to do. So, but
yeah,
you don't have to be a millionaire to do it.
Yeah, that is definitely true. One of the other things that people don't realize is like a ball and a glove, unless you outgrow that glove or you accidentally send it through the washing machine, that glove will last you a while. And the same with like the soccer ball scenario, unless you poke a hole in it, you're fine. But cars, you always got to put new brakes on them. You always got to change the oil. You always got to flush the brake fluid. You always have to buy new tires for them. And if you use them, the expenses don't stop.
Correct.
But what we kind of looked at is it's cheaper for somebody to rent a car and have everything they need than it is to buy a car. So it's the same scenario as I mentioned earlier. If we want more people to get into racing, the barrier of entry from a dollar perspective and what is included is cheaper for someone to rent from us than it is to buy from us. Because if you were to rent a car from us, you get a crew member, you get a car, you get consumables, you get food, you get all of this stuff. But if you were to buy a car from us, let's say it is $10,000, that price is a lot higher and you just get the car. You don't have the crew showing up, you don't have the food or anything like that. And so that instance of breaking the car and getting my license is what caused us to make a paradigm shift. And we were no longer a company that builds cars and then rents them. We're a company that rents cars and then builds them.
Okay. I did an episode with Kerry Rouse. He rents Spec Bs. B-Spec, sorry. SEC. He rents B-Spec cars. And but his operating cost, the hard part of owning is that buy-in, that initial buy-in, and writing off your own labor, right? If you write off your own labor, which most of us do, we have this passion. Like, I'm definitely not an engineer, but I love tinkering, right? I love tinkering as much as I love racing. And so for me to rent doesn't fulfill my needs, right? But renting, especially you looking to do like this gateway thing, get you out there. Some people will be happy to rent forever. Kerry will continue to rent. He'll probably never own his own race car, okay? Because he lives a different lifestyle and has different passions and different skill sets he wants to flex than I do, right? I love building aero. I love rewiring. I don't like rewiring, but I like cleaning up my wires and trying to make them better, right? I try to make my car and the little widgets I get to make for it or do to it. I try to make them optimized. And so that I get joy out of optimizing my race car, right? But he and some of the other people, it's not joyful to them. Working on a car is not fun for everybody. I've been to a point where I don't even like working on my car myself. I got into some frustrations, and I could definitely see, especially new. Do I really want to do this? Do I want to put my street car in an HPDE and risk it? Or would I rather rent something and then have somebody help me with it because I'm not handy or whatever? That's an easy gateway for people. I would be surprised if you're not booked out for a long, long time, because it seemed pretty affordable. I mean, it's as affordable as going and owning, it seemed. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's, to your point, that is exactly right. There are some people that love to tinker on their cars, that love to tweak everything just like yourself. I'm included in that. I love to build things. We can make this look cooler. We can make this lighter. We can make this more optimal, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at 3D scanning the engine bay of our cars and designing and 3D printing custom intakes, just because I know the math behind it will say we can get slightly higher air velocity and slightly cooler air into the intake of the car. Does that do anything? No. It makes a quarter of a horsepower, and that has no bearing on anything. But it's something I want to do because it's really cool in my eyes.
Right. It's a time to learn, right? When you do those things, you get to learn things. Some people prefer to learn only the track side stuff. They want to learn. Yep. I want to learn to race. I want to learn to optimize my braking zones. I want to learn to optimize my entry speeds. I want to learn to be comfortable with my slip angle. But I also understand one of the big things for renters, and I don't know how well you guys do this, or maybe we could talk about it, but he was really happy about getting data. So he runs a Garmin Catalyst, so it's easy. You pull the Catalyst out and you sit down for data, but they have somebody that goes over it with you, Yep. And the time that you don't have to, I check my own tire pressures. I check my own tire temperatures sometimes. Like, I'm the one that's nut and bolting my car and adding gas and all those things. When you rent, that stuff's taken care of for you, and you can concentrate on you and you driving. And that is a huge bonus of renting. So.
Oh yeah. One thing that I noticed in my really short time of having my own car, and even when we bought the first RX-7, from driving and being a team crew member, we'll say, I love crewing for people and I love racing. I don't love doing both. So if I am at the track, I would prefer to do one or the other. It doesn't really bother me which one I do, but I am always stressed. I'm always worried because, just like you said, there's someone there to do it for you. You don't have to worry about making sure your tires are rotated. You don't have to make sure they're aired up the right way. You don't have to make sure whatever could happen. You just ask someone, hey, this is what we need to do, and they do it. Mm-hmm. And you can look at your data and you can get faster. You can relax. And I've understood that I like to do both, but I can't do both at the same time. And so, yeah, for us, we do a very, very similar thing to what he's doing. We run Garmin Catalysts in our cars as well. Okay. Because they're very user-friendly. Mm-hmm. Our renters, we can pull out of the car and say, let's look at your data. And we do the same thing. We'll sit down with them and go over, hey, this is where you're braking late. And you should be braking a little earlier. Maybe you should turn in a little earlier. Maybe you should carry more speed. Right. Or you're hitting the apex too soon.
Yeah. And a little dirty secret of mine. Once upon a time, a friend and I wanted to basically build a car, an endurance car. We weren't going to build our, it wasn't going to be a from scratch car. We were going to take a production vehicle and develop into an endurance car and try to run and manage an endurance team. And I found that I preferred driving rather than trying to herd cats, or because I had roommates that had, one of my roommates had a Spec Miata. One of them was out racing motorcycles. And so the logistics and management of all of that type of stuff really wasn't interesting to me. So I'd sort of dropped that ball. How many cars are you renting and managing as a team right now?
So we currently run 3 race-ready cars.
Okay.
That's kind of the limit that we're comfortable at right now because we're only in our second year of renting.
Okay.
We haven't expanded a huge amount. We went from 1 and 2 cars last year to 3 this year. We have 2 spare cars because, unfortunately, at the end of last season, we watched our championship leader total his car.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being the guy who was leading the championship, he's the one that shouldn't make as many mistakes. And when you go 45 miles an hour into a concrete barrier, those early 80s RX-7s aren't too happy.
No.
But
they can smush like a tin can.
Not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so we currently run 3 cars.
Okay.
And we have 2 full-time renters for the SCCA season this year. And then, so the third car, if we have time and it's not too big of a deal, I usually race it. But if we have a renter, it gets rented out. Okay. So we currently have 1 car available for the rest of the season.
Okay. So you're running a 3-car team right now. I think one of the first posts that I saw from you months ago, you were starting this big Instagram push and you were talking about, I can't remember. Was it like 50,000 followers or 7 race cars?
Yep, it was
some ratio like that.
Yep, exactly. So I'm still learning the social media side.
Right.
And the goal is for every 10,000 followers we have, we'll buy another car.
Okay.
And have another race car.
Okay.
And so we have a little over 26,000 followers. So I'm a little bit of a head start on the 30,000 mark because we do have 3 cars. And that was one of those, it didn't go over quite as well as I had hoped because the way that I worded it sent the wrong message. It made it seem like we were starting a team, not that we had a team.
Right.
But yes.
Okay. So you have 3 cars, 2 backups. Are the backups just rollers? Do they have engines already? Are they 90% finished kind of cars? Something you swap over
one
fires.
Is a roller.
Okay.
One is a roller, and then one is a fully complete car minus the roll cage.
Okay. I'm so logistically, what now? Mind you, we're going to get into you have other projects in the garage, right? So you're learning your lessons from Little Dipper, and you're managing this 3-car team with spares and developing new projects. What logistically, space-wise, are you operating in? So
we have a handful of garages on a property that I have that total about 5,000 square feet. And so one of the buildings houses all of our fabrication equipment, welders, our CNC, tube bending equipment, spare parts, those types of things. And then that's where we really crank out the bigger items.
Okay.
And then we have one that's just basically a race shop where we keep tools and maintenance things, oil changes, brake fluid swaps, really anything like that. Like this year, we're putting passenger seats in all of our cars. So the cars are in the shops getting passenger seats put in. They're getting repainted because we want them to be nice. So we got to repaint them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so across about 5,000 square feet of shop.
Okay. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, especially when you take into you have CNCs, you have a fab section, you have a maintenance section, you're having to store things. It doesn't seem like a lot of space.
It is not. Yeah. We're working on expanding as fast as we can into a bigger shop.
Yeah, especially if your Instagram starts going to the moon and you have to live with this promise you made. So,
oh yeah,
you could end up running out of space fairly quickly.
My secret sauce of hoping that if that does happen and we do suddenly get 20,000 or 30,000 more followers overnight is that we'll be big enough to start working with bigger companies. So that would definitely help.
Right. So, okay, let's talk about that a little bit. You started Leadfoot and you were talking with Toyo. I don't know if Toyo is a partner of yours or, just early on mentoring, but you've had posts. I've had podcasts about how to get your team to have partnerships or sponsorships, however people want to word them. How does a team like yours that's predominantly renting, how do you look for help?
So the biggest way that we, because most people don't know this, but we are fully self-funded. And because we're a business, we have business models in order to basically meet our criteria. Our goal to partner with companies is to give them exposure, just like any partnership or sponsorship, however you want to call it, works. We want to give them exposure, but our end goal is to make our rentals cheaper.
Okay.
We want to expand, but we also want to cut down the price of our car seats because the same thing is still prevalent. We want people to get into the cars. And so what we've done is over the years, I've met a handful of people who do sponsorship proposals, how to talk with businesses. We've built probably about 5 or 6 partnership, like marketing proposals for companies, basically like a boilerplate of this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we can offer. We do have a marketing person who is constantly in contact with businesses. So some businesses that he's direct contact with are companies like Ford, Audi, Lenovo Computers, Carnival Cruise Lines. Those are the types of businesses that he has connections with. He talks to and pushes our product to those companies in order to partner with us.
Okay.
On our side, we are currently revamping our proposal again because finding companies to partner with is a moving target. You always have to adapt. Yeah. So we're building a handful of new ones in order to better approach more localized businesses for partnerships and marketing opportunities because we will be in a physical contact with around 60,000 people over the course of a year between car shows, race events, community events, wherever we go, because ultimately we're a business that needs to rent our cars. So we will put ourselves out there more than a normal race team would, because most of the time, if you want to do a community event at, let's say AutoZone, let's say they're your sponsor, they might have to pay extra in order to do that. We want to find customers. So if they say, hey, we want to do an event, we'll say, great, let's do it. Because that's just more exposure for us, more people to potentially rent our seats. The way we market it is our whole goal and our whole idea of the company is very community-based. And so we want everybody to feel like they're part of our community and we're part of theirs. So the only thing that we lose to a normal sponsorship setting is you can't really get sponsorships per driver because we might not have a driver for a whole season. They might only be in one event. So kind of if you use Formula One as an example, Yuki Tsunoda is a really good one for AlphaTauri, or formerly AlphaTauri, that he is sponsored personally by Honda. And so when he goes to AlphaTauri or Red Bull, Visa, Cash App, like whatever their stupid name is, he comes with that sponsorship. And so that's the only criteria that we're missing from a normal sponsorship kind of ideation. But because we're business based and we're constantly wanting more people in our seats, instead of trying to appease to fans, we're appeasing to renters. And it's a lot easier to make a connection with somebody if they're driving the car that says AutoZone across it, as opposed to if they're sitting in the stand looking at a car that says AutoZone across it.
Yeah. So I'm trying to envision what your holistic model is, because you started off trying to build a car from scratch-ish, and now you've built this team because the goal was still the same, right? Leadfoot with Little Dipper was to get folks on track cheaply. You've sort of twisted and gone to the rental race team model. I'm assuming that helps pay the bills, keeps cash flow going. Are there still projects you guys are working for to optimize the barrier of entry? Because these spec first gen RX-7s aren't going to be around forever.
Nope, they definitely aren't. And yes, we are. So they're the starting point essentially for our team, because our division is still one of the biggest Spec 7 class divisions with Spec 7 racing in it for the country.
Okay.
So for us, our group is actually the biggest out of all of the SCCA groups. So they have a low barrier to entry for us, which means we can have a low barrier to entry for our renters. And then they have a field of, and we're a relatively small group, but we have a field of anywhere from 10 to 15 cars out on track in our class. And so it gives our renters a lot of competition, no matter if you're the fastest, slowest, middle of the pack, in order to race with. So we are currently working on expanding into other platforms, because not everyone wants to race an RX-7. Not everybody likes to drive an RX-7.
Right.
Just like everybody has their own preferences, some cars handle differently than others. And so we are working on expanding to more cars, different platforms, so that way our renters have different options. But we do have other projects, because as me personally, from what I've seen and the research that I've done, the barrier to entry for motorsports is just incredibly high on most avenues. It's expensive to buy tires. It's expensive to maintain your car. It's expensive to buy a car. And everybody kind of lives in this world of, I need to have a better car. Well, we'll use the Spec Miata as an example. If you want to chase 2% more power, because you're in a spec car, you have to buy a $2,000 to $3,000 intake. So the whole goal of LFR is to make racing more affordable, for you to purchase a car, for you to maintain a car, for you to race the car, and for you to get started if you don't have any of those things. And so our big project that we're currently working on, and we're replacing the Little Dipper with, is called the Project 24. I think your sound is off.
I'm muted myself, and
Yep.
that's what happens when you're trying to juggle multiple things at one time. Let's get into Project 24 a little bit. Intro what that is. I still want to talk about the race team and race management and how you do that, but we would be amiss if we didn't mention Project 24, because it is the new evolution. It is still your goal to get people into something turnkey at an affordable price. So,
yeah. So I'll just briefly touch on it and kind of give you a very surface level what our goals are for it. So, as part of my learning experience for joining the motorsports community, I realized that my definition of cheap is not necessarily the motorsports definition of cheap. So this car is going to be slightly more expensive than our old one. So we're targeting a price of $25,000 for our kit. The car itself is taking a completely different twist or direction than our original, because our original had a decent amount of flaws for the main goal. This is going to be it's a two-seat, mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, for lack of a better term, supercar silhouetted track car. So some of the cars that I really take inspiration for this car and I've really loved over the last few years is the Ford GT Mark II and Mark IV, and then the McLaren 720S GT3X.
Okay.
And so both of those cars are something that I love the way they look, and I love the idea behind them. The price tag is something that is tough to swallow when you're pushing $1 million plus. But this car is it's going to be tube chassis. It's something that's near and dear to your heart. It's Honda powered.
Good.
But that was a big shift that we made from motorcycle engines to Honda engines.
So are you looking at the 1.5 liter turbos, or are you looking at the V6s?
Yes. So the whole idea is to have a car that goes into different categories based on what the person wants to do.
Okay.
So we're going to have essentially 3, maybe 4 versions. And I say versions lightly. If you buy the kit from us, you can spec a D series engine, a B series engine, or a K series engine. Okay. And each kit will just come with the associated wiring harnesses and mounts. It won't cost any different, but we're hoping to be able to have people that can pick up a $500 engine and transmission and throw it in their car with our kit with a D series and get started with a 1,500 pound car and a 150 or 130 horsepower engine.
Right.
But if they want to, they can go up and make 3, 4, 5, 600 horsepower or more with a built K series or a built B series. But I don't like the idea of getting stuck into one platform because at some point it's going to limit you or it's going to limit your customers. And with the versatility of the aftermarket of the Honda engines, it makes it to where if you go and push the limits of your D series and you're like, I want to go faster, I want to start chasing more track records or be more competitive, instead of spending thousands of dollars upgrading your engine, you can just buy a new engine for $800 plus the transmission. I think that's $500. And then the associated mounts and everything that go with it.
So
we're currently trying to work with. Go ahead.
So you're not using a Honda engine mounted to a universal transmission. You're using the Honda engine transmission combos.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
It lends you to, or at least from the research we've done, it lends you to a lot of aftermarket potential with it. So if you are running a K-Series engine, instead of having to buy bespoke parts from us, you can buy the LSD from Quaife. You can put a sequential transmission from Quaife in it if you're running a K-Series. As long as the aftermarket supports it, it makes it a lot easier to upgrade it later on.
Yeah, so my recommendation is maybe not investing a whole lot into the B series because of the market, but look at the L15B system because those engines are everywhere. The aftermarket isn't there for the transmissions yet, but it's coming. So
for which engine?
L15B7s.
Oh, is that the turbo 1.5 out of the SI?
SI has them. Several others have them. So just a recommendation for that.
Yeah.
That
definitely is the next one in the pipeline. And it would be nice to be able to replace it at some point, make that kind of the more entry level engine for people to get into, or even a good like middle of the road build for sure.
Yeah. The prices on them the prices you can get from like a Coparts wrecked car or the junkyards for the engine transmission combos right now are very tempting. Very tempting. So,
I'll definitely take a look at that.
Yep. I did have an episode on that too, because it's so tempting that people have started putting them in golden era cars. So the old Integras in the Civic coupes and sedans and things like that. The old school 90s Hondas are getting those engines put in them. And apparently, I mean, they're like 215 at the wheels from the factory. So you tweak them a little, you turn up the boost a little, and you can make a lot of power pretty quickly. So they're pretty flexible in that manner.
It's an L15?
L15B. The 7 came in the SI. Okay. L15B7 came in the SI, but the L15B, I believe there's different number designators.
It looks like it's a Honda Accord engine.
Yeah, the Accord, the Civic, some others came with it too. So they're not the only ones, but you know, if you're going to look down this rabbit hole, it's worth it. I'm sure all the L15 guys are yelling at me right now to stop shilling their cheap motors right now. But you guys got to leave my K series alone, so I can continue to afford to race those. So I got to give people options. But okay, so let's get back into the race team, because you're looking to expand, right? You're trying to grow. You're trying to keep the barrier of entry low. Excuse me. But you're also trying to grow the business. You have a new project coming. What does management of the team look like on a week to week? This is the off season, right? So you're doing maintenance, you're cleaning up the cars, you're lining up customers. But when the season starts to kick in, we don't have to talk dollars and money, but necessarily, but let's talk about like logistics planning and organization and what it takes to get where you need to be as a team.
Yeah, it's definitely, we're still learning. You always
will learn. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But the biggest thing that I've found helps with that is just plan out as much as you can and stick to the plan as closely as you can. And then one of the other things is don't have any outlandish goals or expectations. So some of the things that we do is we provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner for our renters. Let's say we're doing an SCCA weekend. We'll provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner the Saturday and Sunday for the event. We're not trying to bring out a wok and a stove or a burner and bringing fresh fish and all of this stuff. We're bringing steak, things that'll keep easier in a cooler, kind of having more realistic expectations, and then planning ahead. Luckily, knock on wood, I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot here. These cars are pretty bulletproof and they're pretty.
I'll knock on wood for you.
Maintenance liked. I did it over here too to make sure. But they're, knock on wood, you don't have to really do a whole heck of a lot in between, as long as nothing drastic happens. So we have had thrashes in the middle of the night, like last season. We built a car that hadn't been on track in nearly 10 years in order to be ready for the next day. And we were having it tech inspected while we had the intake apart because we needed to reseal it up. So you do have nights like that, but it's as much planning as possible. And then my wife has been a really big proponent on this and helping me with it, is staying organized and staying to the plan. Because if you don't stay organized and you don't stay to the plan, why would you even make it in the first place? So if we know we have a 3-hour downtime in between sessions, we're going to be doing this, this, and this. And we have to do it in a reasonable amount of time, but we also can't say it needs to be done right now in 5 minutes. So like maybe it's rotating the tires. Okay, we need to rotate the tires. That's not going to take me 5 minutes to do it. It might take me 15. And then we have checklists built for each of the cars. So when they come off the track, the checklist gets stuck on the car. So we can say, you need to do these 10 things to every car every time they come off the track. And that checklist lives with the car until it's done. So that way we know what's been done, no matter if it's the person working on it is standing there or they're off going to the bathroom. So we just need to we try to stay as organized as possible and have a game plan, because the game plan might not work, but if you don't have anything to shoot for, you're just going to be lost from the get-go.
Yeah. Logistically, how are you, maybe this doesn't occur, but maybe it does. Maybe you have a driver that wears brakes a little faster than others. Maybe one's a little harder on tires than others. How are you ensuring that you can always stay ahead of the just-in-time systems that we live with, to make sure that you have enough to get through the next event? Or how far ahead are you looking when you start to look logistically at tires and brakes and oils and all the consumables that these cars demand?
If it was up to me, I would be able to bring a spare car in pieces and consumables and everything to every event, plus a spare car that is running ready to go. That would be my dream. Right now, we kind of just try to have as many parts as possible as spares in the truck with us. And then if possible, we keep another set at our shop. So because these cars are lightweight, they're pretty easy on all their components.
Okay.
A set of tires, if you can drive the cars well, a set of tires will last you a whole season. Now, we have had a renter burn through a set of tires in one day. So we always bring spare sets of tires. We always bring spare brake pads, spare brake rotors, spare oil, spare brake fluids, all of the normal stuff that goes bad. And then we also work with a couple other people that we race with that also carry spare components. So even if we don't have it at the track, like we had a renter break a transmission, and I looked at him and I'm like, we don't carry a spare of that.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we weren't well established enough to be bringing a spare transmission with us. And I went over and I said, hey, our renter broke the transmission, and one of my friends who races with us, his name is Mark, he looked at me and said, we have a spare, do you want it? And we all care about being out there and racing. So we all usually, if I have the parts, I give them the parts and they just replenish it for me. If they have the parts and I need them, they'll give them to me and I replenish them. So that's a stopgap, we'll say.
Yeah.
But ideally, I would have enough consumables for at least one car full refresh at the track, any given event.
That race community is pretty important. And it helps that you're in a class that's large and it's not a multi-manufacturer class like B-Spec has, 4 cars that run in it. So, if you're the only Mini Cooper or the only Fit or whatever, the only Mazda 2, I don't even know which. There's probably tons of all of it. But to have that community that you can reach out to and the understanding, and then that community still has the same goals as your team, is really helpful. But you're balancing profitability by the space you're consuming, right? So you want to bring a whole spare car, and then you want to bring all the stuff to refresh an entire car, but that takes space, and that space ends up costing money in the long run, right? So, would it be better to have a backup spare car or another renter? There's management things that you have to make decisions on as a team, and as the team manager, you have to deal with those types of logistics. But it's helpful when you have a community like that where you can go, okay, they're bringing transmissions, I have a spare engine, maybe an engine and a half, whatever the rotaries are, however you guys build them in a trackside or have them pre-built, I'm bringing more diffs, or I'll bring 2 full axles, he's got an extra trans, and start spreading that love around. Can be helpful. So,
yeah. And it, like you had said, on the management side, you have to make those hard decisions, unfortunately. So like the transmission issue, a transmission, we will be bringing a spare transmission with us this season, just in case. But if someone grenades the engine, at some point you have to say, we can't fix that. Not many people bring a spare race engine with you. And because just like you had said, you have to balance profitability. How many people have $3,000 to $5,000 just to sink into a spare engine and bring it with them to never use it. At this point, we don't necessarily have that much money to just throw around.
Right.
But when it comes to, we broke an engine, we can get the car up and going for the next rental. Yeah, we have spare stuff at our shop. So that unfortunately has to be one of those hard decisions. And I hope I never have to see many of those situations, but we have to be upfront with our renters that there are certain things that you can't bounce back from. And like our championship winner totaling his car at the event, it was the last event of the season, and if he didn't get back out on track, he would have lost the race or lost the event. Luckily, I had brought a spare car with me, and so we rebuilt that car that night just to get him out on track. Was it perfect? No, but it got him out on track.
Right.
And
some points are better than zero.
You just have to. Yep. And at some point, you just have to say, "I'm sorry, we can't. This isn't fixable." So that is a tough decision that you have to make, unfortunately.
Yeah. Everybody has that decision to make, but you have 3 of them to make now because you have 3 cars that you're managing. You know, I bring what I can bring for my car, and it's my car only. I'll beg, borrow, buy whatever I can get my hands on if I need it. And I've had to, down to a $5 sensor that I didn't own.
Oh, yeah.
That I was hot swapping out with a good friend of mine. You know, one day it wasn't going to work. His sessions and my sessions, my race sessions there wasn't enough time to hot swap them, right? Takes 20 minutes and we were back to back. There was no way we could get it out of his hot transmission and put it in mine, right? Well, guess what? The next day there was an hour in between. So he would come in, we'd pull it, you know, let things cool off just enough, throw it in mine, and then vice versa. When I'd come back out, jack up the side of the car and keep going, right? We were able to work it out. When you have 3 cars to manage that way, sometimes you can't do it, you know. And I'm going to assume on the management side, for people who are looking to run a team or run rentals, you have to have a pretty comprehensive rental agreement that covers what you can fix and what you can't fix and what the outcomes are, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's basically you have to say what you can expect to be fixed and what won't be expected to be fixed. But we always try to fix things that are, even if they're on the unexpected list.
Right.
So like a transmission failure, that would typically be, I'm sorry, you broke third gear in the transmission. It's stuck in neutral. We can't do anything about that. But if, depending on the situation, if there is a spare transmission or something available, we'll still try our darndest to swap it out and get him on the track the next day, because maybe it's a Saturday, Sunday event. And it's kind of one of those, I guess you can say, you under promise and over deliver. You have to have those lines drawn in the sand, but if it's for a good thing, you can always try to step over those lines if it works.
Okay. I mean, that's how I would want somebody I rented from to operate, and just be upfront about it, right? Over promising and under delivering is always bad, right? I come from the consulting world. That's a taboo combination, right? You always have to under promise and over deliver. So, and you just try to operate that way. It's basically a good business practice. They probably should teach it the first day of business school, right?
Oh yeah.
So we've covered a lot in this hour. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Not
Not that I can really think of. I think we've touched on pretty much everything. Renting race cars is a great option for people. It's a pain in the butt to run a rental team, and I would honestly pick the easier of the 2 versions of this business that we have, and design and build race cars, because that seems easier some days.
Yeah. Where can people follow you so we can get you at least to your 30,000? Maybe if we get lucky and we get some of these shorts out, we can get you viraled out to, 40, 50, 60 and force you into buying 3 more cars. Where can people find you?
Hey, I'm always for having to buy more cars. I've already got a 53-foot internal stacker trailer in my sights.
Okay.
And a semi in order to bring these cars to the track. I just need enough cars to say it's a good enough purchase.
Awesome.
But they can find me at Leadfoot Racing on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble. Twitter is LFR Jett. My name is kind of a slight variation on all platforms, but it's Leadfoot Racing, and look for a logo of blue mountains and the letters LFR, and that's us. And then we try to post as often as possible, once a day on almost every platform, and then we do videos every week on YouTube as well.
And for any of the local folks, you're out of Colorado, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're based out of Colorado Springs, and we race in the Colorado Region SCCA right now. We work with SCCA, NASA, Colorado Hill Climb Association, and then we also do bespoke events for customers. So like Grid Life or, mainly Grid Life right now.
Okay.
Because we have Kansas and Utah so close. Oh, and if they want to sign up to keep up with updates, we have leadfootracing.com. They can sign up to our email list and keep up with our blog posts as well. Yeah,
so I'm on your website. It looks like it is lead-footracing.com. And then your Instagram is lead_foot_racing, if I remember correctly.
Yep, and it's the same for TikTok as Instagram, and then YouTube is just Leadfoot Racing, one word.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show, explaining this rental business and sort of your passion for getting people on track at a reasonable price. And I wish you all the luck with that Project 24. I need to get it street legal though. So.
Oh, we already know how to do that.
See, this is awesome. This will be great. So
this one's planning to have air conditioning too.
Okay. So when I retire from racing, I can pull my race engine and transmission, slam it in a Project 24, and then ride off into the sunset and go fishing in my mid-engine rear-wheel drive sports car.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, Jett, thanks again for coming on the show, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Con. It was a pleasure.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.